Hello, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we're going to give you a status update on Dana Brooke after she suffered a nasty bump on what looked like a Nia Jax botch on last night's Raw.
Why this match had to be restarted on Monday Night Raw.
Randy Orton returned on Raw and RKO'd Alexa Bliss.
And Edge announces himself for the Royal Rumble. I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
Okay, let's kick things off by talking about Dana Brooke. She took a nasty bump indeed in a 6-woman tag. It was Dana, Mandy Rose, and I've forgotten the other participant. Charlotte Flair, here we go, against Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, and Lacey Evans. 3-on-3. The closing sequence was Dana and Nia in the ring at the same time. A couple of spots leading up to this moment were fine, but we got to the point where Nia looked like she was lifting Dana up to powerbomb her down. One of Dana's legs went down by Nia's side. Nia adjusted and attempted to kind of execute what looked like a choke slam or a choke bomb on Dana. There was a moment where, if you go back and watch the footage on the YouTube clip or on the show itself, Dana kind of slips, and from there, she just goes crashing down into the mat. Nia throws her down with immense force. Even the commentators were like, whoa, when this happened, and it led to the finish. Nia hit the leg drop seconds later for the 1-2-3. That was it, match over. Coming out of this, I think the main thing I was thinking, certainly, was that was rough. Is Dana Brooke okay? The good news is, yes, she is okay. In fact, she's 100% okay, according to Mike Johnson of PW Insider. The spot looked rough. It looked like a botch. It looked like, all these bad things, but Dana's doing fine. That's the main thing coming out of this. Pro wrestling's a dangerous job, right? Things can and will go wrong. It's a hard profession. It takes an immense physical toll on its performers. You hate to see things like this happen. You hate to see botches, and especially when people get hurt, if it's just an error or it doesn't look particularly dangerous, you just let it slide. You go, it is what it is. But when it looks like somebody could have come out of that situation in pain or with an injury potentially, you naturally become concerned. But it doesn't seem to be the case here. Dana Brooke doing fine. Good news at the end of what was a very rough tag match.
Yeah, I'll get more into that in due course. Mixed emotions about this. Look, I've been front and centre when it comes to blaming Nia Jax for injuring people over the past few years. And I do have an element of sympathy when it comes to this one. You and I were talking about this before we started recording, and I realised this is no way of apologising to Dana Brooke, but it's not Nia Jax's worst botch that we've seen.
Yeah.
And like you say, it was an element of just misfortune around it. What I will say is, again, Nia Jax is almost too powerful for her own good, and needs to accommodate for that when she's facing someone like Dana Brooke, or when something goes a bit awry mid-match, in particular mid-move. I'm thinking of, remember when she injured Kairi Sane Hoyner into the steel stairs? And you were like, you don't need to throw someone that strong into the steel steps. You just need to guide them. And that was my kind of same issue with this of, it was an element of, like I say, just being a bit unlucky with Dana Brooke not quite being in the right position or slipping out of position. I'm not placing any blame on her for this. But if that's happening, you don't need to use the same amount of force as you would with someone who can completely cover up and protect themselves from a powerbomb, for example. So I don't know, I've got mixed emotions about this one, Andy.
Yeah, I totally agree. It does feel like every 3 or 4 months, sometimes even shorter than that, we are sitting here covering one of these stories about the same performer. So sucks that it keeps happening, but I'm glad Dana's okay.
But in Nia's defense, I will say this. She did put Lana through a table for 9 consecutive weeks and didn't injure her. So, you got to give it and take it. But I realise that's not exactly much to make up for what happened last night. And speaking of last night, my God, that match was all over the place. So the first match we got to see was the one they advertised, Shayna Baszler versus Charlotte Flair, a match I talked about being a contender for match of the year had it just been those two given 20 minutes on paper. But all the bollocks surrounding it, you knew it was never going to be straightforward. And it went to a DQ in 2 minutes. Charlotte Flair got a bit of offense in on Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax got involved. Then they jumped Charlotte Flair, presumably to get a bit of an advantage ahead of the tag team title match. And down come Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. Eventually it spills out into a 3-on-3, as Andy mentioned, and also involving Lacey Evans. And one part of that match, we saw Shayna Baszler brawling with Charlotte Flair on the outside and then getting counted out. Then we went to a break, and when we came back, Adam Pearce restarted the match. A bit more clarification again from PW Insider's Mike Johnson regarding this. And basically, the reason why this match had to be restarted is that wasn't the plan. I know they've been doing it a lot recently, of like ending matches and then restarting another match or the same match all over again after they come back from a commercial break, but that apparently was not supposed to happen. But the referee has been, as all referees in WWE have been instructed to do, treated the match like a shoot, and Shayna just kind of got her timings wrong and got counted out. I mean, in my opinion, he probably should have given her a bit more leeway. She was right there. She was literally about to get in the ring. And it's not like exactly like their 10 counts are so rigid across the board when it comes to WWE. But apparently not counting out Shayna Baszler would have gone against WWE's edict. So she got counted out. They had that whole schmoz. Adam Pearce, who wasn't meant to be involved in this, had to come out and say, oh, do you want me to restart the match? Okay, we'll restart the match to allow the heels to win, which was the plan all along. Messy, Andy.
Yeah, really awkward stuff. The referee's in a really tight position there. They're in a really tough spot because they do have this strict instruction. And we saw it with the WrestleMania main event with Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey when Ronda's shoulders weren't all the way down and the referee counted it anyway and got fined and punished and all this stuff. So the referee, they're on a knife edge with stuff like this. But you look at the spot and you replay it and it's like, it's like a fraction of a second right before Shayna's shoulders and body is under the bottom rope and stuff. So a shame again that all this stuff happened. Contributed to a really clunky, awkward match that wasn't a whole lot of fun to watch between this and the Dana and Nia stuff.
But the tag title match, presumably at the Rumble, is going to be mint. So that's good.
There you go. Silver lining to every cloud. And speaking of silver things, Randy Orton, he's back. He's back in the flesh on Raw. Of course, he never really went away. He was there last week cutting a promo with a mask, but he was back in the arena this year. He appeared at the very end of Raw. It was Asuka, it was Alexa Bliss, the Raw Women's title. Alexa Bliss transformed like 5 times.
She was on a rocking horse at one point.
Yeah, there was a rocking horse. She had a pink t-shirt, a spooky black t-shirt. She had her old ring attire on. Lots of 5 faces of Bliss, or whatever the story we're going with is here. The essence of the Fiend imbued within her soul. But the match ended when Randy Orton appeared out of nowhere. Of course, dressed like he was auditioning for a Attack of the Killer Tomato... Revenge? Attack? Killer Tomatoes reboot. His face was red. That's the joke. I've just explained it to you, so it's no longer funny. But he had the makeup on because he's burned or whatever. And he hit Alexa Bliss with an RKO. That was the end of Raw. Intergender angle here to close Raw. Asuka just kind of vanished, I guess, into thin air again. You know my opinions on this, guys. Adam Wilborn, what did you think?
Well, it was better than Alexa winning the title, and I hated the whole match. So yeah, I get it. Some people do enjoy it. I look on Twitter on a Tuesday morning and I see people getting very excited and really loving the gimmick, as they do with The Fiend. It's not mine and Andy's cup of tea, to be perfectly honest. I don't know what Randy Orton's obsession with RKO and women in and around Royal Rumble season is, but he's 2 for 2 now. But it is what it is. It's building. I do have a feeling that we're going to turn around, hopefully in WrestleMania season, and say, oh, this is all built nicely, and there's a wonderful story involving Alexa and Randy and The Fiend, and probably The Fiend's going to come out at number 30 and cost Randy Orton, and it's all going to work out quite nicely. But God, it's a hard slog right now, and not for me, that main event. But I'm just glad Asuka's still champion, even though she looked a bit crap by being scared of Alexa Bliss. And also Alexa Bliss, I to be honest, if I'd been possessed and suddenly woke up in the midst of Monday Night Raw, I'd freak out like she did as well. So, these things happen. Which, speaking of things happening, that's allowed. Edge has confirmed he will be a part of this Sunday's Royal Rumble match. Kind of unannounced. They just sort of, midway through the show or hours before the show, I don't know, I was asleep, announced that Edge was going to sort of make a statement. He did so. He talked about his match with Randy Orton and getting injured at Backlash. He talked about, getting injured and no longer being able to wrestle off the back of, I think it was WrestleMania 37. I'm 99% certain on that. He talked about tomorrow not being guaranteed, referenced how much his mother would want him to do it. So he's going to dust himself off, continuing to walk forwards, and he is going to be in the Royal Rumble match. Of course, he won it in 2010, let's not forget. He joins Randy Orton, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan. As my notes here say, poor Andrew Pollard, he was asleep. He was very tired. He worked throughout the last night's Raw. Bobby Lashley, who is The Miz, John Morrison, Jey Uso, Cesaro, Jeff Hardy, Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Shinsuke Nakamura, Sheamus, and Mustafa Ali. They're all going to be involved in the Royal Rumble. What do you reckon to Edge announcing it in advance, Andy?
Personally, I would have preferred the surprise entrance, but it's such a slight preference that I'm not gonna, complain about it or make a big deal about it. The promo was really good. The storyline makes a lot of sense. Yeah, fine, cool. I'm just glad Edge is going to be on the pay-per-view at the end of the day.
The promo is great, and to be honest, I for once can see where WWE are coming from for this. As much people were saying, why have you announced that you could get a huge pop on the night? What do you mean a huge pop on the night? There's no one going to be there.
Zoom calls,
Pop.wav, is probably going to get hit when Edge comes out, but for once, I can see where WWE are coming from this. You let everyone know, and then more casual fans may well watch the pay-per-view on Sunday night. Of course, maybe join us for our live stream. Anyway, let's move on to our Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE if you want to get in touch with us. First question today comes from Fatima Khan, who says, who do you guys think will be the first two entrants, an Iron Man and woman, in the Royal Rumble matches this weekend?
Oh, wow, okay. So I'll tell you what, I'll go the men's match, you go the women's match?
Okay, yeah.
Beautiful. For the men's match, let's go 1 and 2, Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro. Right?
Yes.
Former tag team partners, both are in good form at the moment. And as you mentioned on our pre-chat before this, you want Shinsuke Nakamura's full entrance, right? Iron Man, how about my guy Bobby Lashley? I love Bobby Lashley. He's awesome, and I just want to see him get great things. If he's not going to win it, and he's not going to win it, Iron Man, let's do it.
Yeah, he'd be great to hold the whole match together. I completely agree with those. Like you said, we sort of discussed this beforehand. Maybe Mustafa Ali could be the Iron Man as well. He's not winning it. He could get a bit of exposure though and build towards what could be a great match against Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania. Women's side of things, it's no brainer for me and Andy, to be perfectly honest. You start off with Bayley and with Bianca Belair, and they sort of go throughout the entire match because they've got a really good feud. And yeah, Bianca Belair probably should be the Iron Woman of the whole thing because she's great and maybe should win the whole thing. If not her, then probably Rhea Ripley. Right, second question today comes from Elbruh #LatinJax, who says, I don't know about you, but Retribution are growing on me. With the guidance of Mustafa Ali, I can honestly see them as Raw Tag Team Champs real soon, possibly even at WrestleMania. What do you reckon, Andy?
I think that they're a lot better than they were in their first months. I'll give them that. It's a big improvement, right? Because those first few months were just really slapshot booking, really, really rough stuff. The core concept of the stable to me is still a little bit too wacky, a little bit too how does this exist? They're against the system, but they're within the system. They've tried to explain it, but not in particularly satisfying ways. But yes, I definitely think they've improved. As a fan, purely on that level, it's still not connecting with me personally, but I'm glad it is working for more people such as yourself, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. And if anything is a vehicle to get Mustafa Ali more coverage, then good, because he's fantastically talented.
Yes.
Personally, for me, I think the Raw Tag Team Champions at WrestleMania, I talked about this yesterday on our Raw preview podcast, could well be Matt Riddle and Ricochet. I could see that team teaming up and taking on the Hurt Business, and I think that may well work out pretty well. But yeah, that's good stuff as well. Final question today comes from Kenny. You know it's bad when he has to apologise in the introduction to the question. He says, sorry, Andy Murray, in advance, but what if The Miz is brainwashed by The Fiend, resulting in a successful cash-in against Drew or Bill, complete with a Bliss title run and Morrison face turn?
I mean, I can absolutely see WWE doing that. I don't think anything's really off the table when it comes to this brainwashing and possession and stuff. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Personally, subjectively, don't get on at me for this, it's just my preference. This kind of stuff is not for me. But lots of people are into this kind of thing, and I can totally see them going down the rabbit hole. So yeah, I think you might be onto something as wacky as it sounds. Just to be really fair to all of this, right, and to show that this is subjective, the YouTube clip, and YouTube isn't as valuable a metric as television, acknowledging that. Asuka and Alexa Bliss last night, already at the time of recording, this clip was uploaded 4 hours ago, 417,000 views on YouTube. The next highest thing, I'm just going through the YouTube page here, for WWE from last night's episode of Raw, appears to be Edge, his return, which is sitting on around 100,000. Oh, sorry, I tell a lie, Drew McIntyre and Goldberg, 193. So the Alexa Bliss thing, people are really into it. It's got double the amount of views of the next biggest thing on Raw. Fair play.
The only thing that could make that even bigger is next week Alexa versus Asuka in an arm wrestling match, because for some reason they do massive numbers for WWE.
They do, don't they? A wedding as well. Let's have a wedding. Yeah. The Fiend gets married to, what was the large octopus or something? Wobbly Walrus. That's it. Why not? Sure.
By the way, congratulations to Ramblin' Rabbit's cousin Bad Bunny, who's going to be performing RoyalRumble on Sunday. Let's move on to today's and finally, I just saw this and we haven't had time to mention it, so I thought we would here. On Dynamite this week, AEW Dynamite, it is going to be Dax Harwood versus Jungle Boy. Well worth a watch, in my opinion, that match. But I do like the new stipulation, because of the shenanigans that FTR often pull, that Tully Blanchard and Cash Wheeler are going to be handcuffed to a dinosaur, Andy. Handcuffed to Luchasaurus. Bloody ridiculous, this, and I love it.
Yeah, my one takeaway from this is that Tully Blanchard is going to be absolutely hilarious in this role. One of the all-time great pro wrestling stooges. Looking forward to seeing it.
And Marco Stunt is just going to be winding them up no end. Looking forward to that on Dynamite on Wednesday night. But let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. And myself and Michael Sidgwick sat down yesterday to talk about this new deal with the network and Peacock. Well worth checking that out. And later on today, we're going to be talking all about Monday Night Raw on the Raw Review. And if you thought, oh, thank God that crap mask has gone off Randy Orton, I did a list on 10 worst wrestling masks that is up on this channel right now. Where does it rank? Trust me, you haven't even begun to realise how many bad wrestling masks there have been, so go and check that out. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at...
You can follow me at Andy H. Murray. The H today stands for Happy Birthday Sasha Banks, and as the great Andrew Pollard pointed out on Twitter this morning, the greatest gift WWE could possibly give her is to keep her away from Raw.
Indeed. Happy birthday, Sasha. You can follow me on Twitter at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Bobbly Lashley.